So yesterday we were studying about the doctrine of dependent origination within Buddhist philosophy, right? We were studying the theory of causation within Buddhist philosophy. And the actual term for that is Pratitya Samutpada, right? Pratitya Samutpada. So we did learn last time, if you remember, we did discuss how there is the theory of causation according to Buddhism. It basically proposes that everything that happens in the world, everything that happens in the world happens because of certain causes. और वो हमने पढ़ा जो फोर नोबल ट्रूथ भी था उसमें भी फोर नोबल द सेकंड नोबल ट्रूथ वाज दुख समुदाय मतलब सफरिंग हैज अ कॉज और अगर उस कॉज को खत्म किया जाए सफरिंग भी खत्म होगी. That was within the Four Noble Truths. But when we went deeper into this doctrine of dependent origination, we actually understood कि इसका mechanism क्या है? What is the mechanism that Buddha gives for causes? What is the cycle of causes according to Buddha? And that's what we were studying. Now, I found this one much better and clearer than the last one जो मैंने share किया था, which is, hold on, let me share that as well so that we get an idea, if I can. Maybe not. ये ना, ये भी खुल जाएगा. Let's see that. So anyways, let's go to this also in the meantime. Yeah, there you go. So we had studied the doctrine of dependent origination. This is what we were going through. These were what we did understand is that there is a cycle of 12 such causes that govern everything in the world. That govern everything in the world. 12 such causes that govern everything that happens in the world, especially in the life cycle of human beings. ठीक है? Life cycle of human beings is part of this 12 ka cycle. The cycle of 12. It's also called Bhava Chakra. So we did study 7 of these. We studied number 1 is ignorance. But I've got something which is much easier and better. So let's go to that. This one. So this is the Bhava Chakra. The first one is ignorance. This is before the birth of the human being because we are studying the cycle of birth and rebirth. And that is how Buddha understands cause and effect because that is the biggest field in which we can understand how causes have effects, which is karma. So karma is the cause and then birth, rebirth is the effect. So this is before birth that happens. There is ignorance. There is avidya. Then what happens is the second one was we studied samskara. Wahan uska naam tha predisposition. Predisposition. But I think a much better translation is impression. It is impression. Much better than predisposition. यहाँ हमने पढ़ा था predisposition, the second of the bhava chakra. Samskara aap yaad rakhenge. So this is caused by ignorance. Predisposition means a disposition preceding to or preparing to a certain activity. तो हमने इसको दूसरा word nature भी दिया था. So एक इंसान का जो nature है, जो उसकी actual predisposition होगी, जो जिस किस्म की वो जिंदगी जिएगा, according to Buddhism, that is decided beforehand. Because you have to remember, this is the law of karma. ये तो पहले ही पता चलता है कि ये इंसान सही birth लेगा या बुरा birth लेगा based on what he did in his previous life. We're talking about the cycle of rebirth, right? So predisposition means the disposition preceding to or preparing to certain activity. इसको दूसरे document जो मैं आपके साथ share कर रही हूँ यहाँ, उसमें बोला गया है impression. Impression आप किस तरह याद रखेंगे? If you remember, when we discussed the law of karma, we said that everything that happens has an effect. It leaves an impression. It becomes like it sticks to the body as a subtle body. तो if you do a good deed, वो भी एक कर्मा की तरह चिपकेगा समझो बॉडी पे, और अगर आप गलत कुछ करेंगे वो भी एक कर्मा की तरह चिपकेगा. फिर ऐसा ही इंसान जीता रहता है, जीता रहता है, जीता रहता है टिल द एंड, टिल द लास्ट मोमेंट, डेथ जब आती है. देन डिपेंडिंग ऑन द कर्मास, अगर अच्छे कर्मा होंगे तो मे बी लिबरेशन मिल सकती है या एक अच्छी लाइफ मिल सकती है. अगर बुरे कर्मा होंगे तो फिर बुरी लाइफ मिल सकती है. सो वो इंप्रेशन जो बिल्ड होता है अकॉर्डिंग टू कर्मा, या जो प्री डिस्पोजिशन बनती है, दैट इज द सेकेंड stage in this cycle. 12 का cycle है. उसके बाद the thing that is built is the initial consciousness in the embryo, विज्ञाना. So the first, वो बोलते हैं ना, the first glimpse of consciousness within the womb we are talking about. अब ये बच्चा पैदा हुआ, इसका birth हो गया शुरू, ठीक है, वो कॉन्शियसनेस पहले आ गई. उसके बाद ये बनता जाएगा, डेवलपमेंट जो 9 मंथ्स में होती है इन द वूम, उसमें माइंड बॉडी एम्ब्रियोनिक ऑर्गेनिज्म बनता है. मतलब जो हमने कल पढ़ा, नेम एंड फॉर्म, नामा रूपा, नेम एंड फॉर्म बनता है कि उसको एक नाम भी दिया जाता है, उसकी एक शख्सियत बनती है. इट्स नो मोर लाइक एन एम्ब्रियो, इट इज समबडीज बेबी. So they already have this sort of an existence. अभी बात भी नहीं की है, अभी कुछ भी नहीं हुआ है, मगर एग्जिस्टेंस उसकी एक्सेप्ट हो गई है दुनिया में, और फॉर्म भी मिल गया है. अच्छा, नंबर 5 is now the senses become developed. And if we remember, हमने बोला Buddhist philosophy में there are 6 senses, not 5. So the 5 senses plus the mind, sadayatana, अविद्या, संस्कारा, विज्ञाना, नामरूपा, सदयातना. अब जब सेंसेस बिल्ड अप हो गए, अब सेंसेस से ये जो बेबी है, नाउ द बेबी इज born, the human being is born. Now with the senses, the human being is going to sense the objects, is going to touch, feel and use his or her senses to experience the world, to experience the world. तो वो है स्पर्शा, वो है स्पर्शा. उसके बाद अब क्या हो रहा है, इसी की आदत हो रही है. I mean, imagine we can all go back to that first moment when we were as a child, the first thing that we touched, the first contact that we had with the dunya. We would never remember, obviously, but कोई ना, मतलब है तो सही, एक मोमेंट तो वो पहला मोमेंट तो होगा. तो वही कांटेक्ट इस स्टेज में होता है, स्पर्शा. मगर फिर उसके बाद क्या होता है, दैट इट बिकम्स अ हैबिट. नाउ अब ठीक है, हाँ अब ठीक है. नाउ एम आई ऑडिबल? एम आई ऑडिबल? सुनाई दे रहा है? यस, ओके, गुड. कंटिन्यू करते हैं, जल्दी जल्दी खत्म करते हैं. आई वॉज शेयरिंग माई स्क्रीन. लेट्स गो. यस, तो उसके बाद आता है सेंस एक्सपीरियंस, विच इज फीलिंग और सेंसेशन, जिसको हम बोल रहे हैं वेदना. तो द चाइल्ड और द ह्यूमन बीइंग बिकम्स यूज्ड टू एक्सपीरियंसिंग द वर्ल्ड विद हिज और हर 5 and 6 senses. 5 senses जो हम जानते हैं, और 6th है with the mind. ठीक. उसके बाद जब when the human being becomes very used to sensing the world, extremely used to sensing the world, what happens is इसमें एक वो हो जाती है, एक क्रेविंग हो जाती है, एक किस्म का लगाव हो जाता है दुनिया से, है ना, कि you become attached to the world. This is that craving, or trishna. It's pronounced as trishna. It's a kind of a thirst, a craving for enjoyment for this world. It's caused by the actual experience or sensation of enjoyment. It is due to craving that a person blindly longs for worldly attachments. And there's six forms. There's six forms. There's six forms of craving. There are six forms of craving, such as with forms, sounds, smells, tastes, touch, and ideas. तो according to जितने भी senses हैं, उतने cravings, उस किस्म की cravings होती है. Like our noses crave for perfume, our mouth craves for food, our eyes crave for pleasant sights, है ना? So उससे वो एक attachment दुनिया से बढ़ जाती है. उसके बाद आता है, अब जब क्रेविंग हो रही है, तृष्णा और थर्स्ट बन रही है, उसके बाद आता है अटैचमेंट और क्लिंगिंग. अटैचमेंट एंड क्लिंगिंग. व्हाट इज दिस कॉल्ड? उपादना. उपादना. अटैचमेंट और क्लिंगिंग. दिस वन. कि now बार बार you are enjoying the world, you become immersed in the world, that your life is only about the dunya, the worldly stuff, food, clothes, pleasures of the dunya, enjoyment, right? So that is attachment of your senses to the world. Good. And उसके बाद क्या आता है? Attachment या clinging के बाद becoming या भावा. मतलब एक किस्म की भावना, जिसको नहीं बोलते हैं हिंदी में, that will to be born, like you like life because you are enjoying the things of this world. Now you start liking life. You have the will to be born. You want to exist. And this is caused by clinging or attachment, जो हमने देखा यहाँ तृष्णा, और इस उपादना से फिर भावा पैदा होती है. So it includes thoughts and actions which are responsible for rebirth. अब आप देख रहे हैं कि आहिस्ता आहिस्ता ये जो ह्यूमन बीइंग है, ये अपने लिए रास्ता बना रहा है रीबर्थ के लिए. ठीक है? Just because of craving and attachment to the world. ठीक है? There are three kinds of becoming, such as sensual becoming, form becoming, and formless becoming. मतलब becoming भी, मतलब to be rebirth होना भी अलग अलग किस्म का रीबर्थ है. एक हुआ सिर्फ आपकी सेंसेस होंगी, रीबर्थ पाएंगी. एक हुआ फिर आपका फॉर्म भी बनेगा, और एक किस्म का रीबर्थ ये बोलते हैं फॉर्मलेस रीबर्थ. Formless rebirth, like you are existing but you don't have a form, or you have senses, or you have a form. So this is now the will to be born after being attached to the world. उसके बाद जब will आ जाती है, तब birth भी हो जाता है. तो life, मतलब the time of death comes, but the human being will now not be dead. The human being will be reborn. This is jati or birth. Birth also rebirth. Now this is the second birth of this human being. This is caused by bhava. जब will पैदा हुई to be born, to love life, to be attached to life, फिर इंसान फिर से ये हो जाता है, rebirth हो जाता है उसका, is reborn. The human being is reborn. And the jiva is the living being. Jiva is the living being. The jiva is caught up in the wheel of the world and remains in it till it attains nirvana. तो मतलब जो ये living being है, जो ये इंसान है, जीवा है, is caught up. Now the jiva is caught up in this wheel of the world. It's a cycle of birth, rebirth, birth, rebirth, birth, rebirth, till it attains nirvana. And nirvana, if you remember, is moksha or liberation. It refers not just to birth at the beginning of a lifetime, but to birth as a new person. So मतलब ये सेम इंसान नहीं फिर बार बार पैदा हो रहा है. तो ये इंसान की जो रूह है या आत्मा है, फिर कोई दूसरा फॉर्म ले लेती है, या इंसान या जानवर या पेड़ या कुछ और. ठीक है? So this is the acquisition of new status. ये जो जाति हो रही है, rebirth हो रहा है, this is the acquisition of new status or position. एंड उसके बाद अब जब बर्थ हो गया, बर्थ में मगर बहुत सारे मसले भी हैं, बर्थ तो सीधा है नहीं, बर्थ में ओल्ड एज भी है, बर्थ में डेथ भी है, एंड ऑल ऑफ दिस इज सफरिंग. If you remember, Buddha considered all of this to be different kinds of suffering in the world. So old age and death, which is jara marana, which is called jara marana, old age and death are caused by birth. मतलब अगर इंसान जब पैदा ही होगा तब तो ओल्ड एज उसको देखनी है मोस्टली, और डेथ तो सबको देखनी है. सो बोथ ऑफ दिस इज सफरिंग, एंड दिस इज द साइकिल ऑफ सफरिंग, which is birth, rebirth, and the suffering continues till a person attains nirvana or moksha. So rebirth यहाँ लिखा है, rebirth causes the whole chain of worldly sufferings. After a man is caught in the wheel of the world, this is the cycle of the world, diseases, old age, suffering, death, etc. occur. This is, insan is caught, the human being is caught up in this cycle of birth and rebirth. And if you notice, what is that one thing that is causing this suffering, the suffering of the world? That one thing is this craving, this desire, this attachment, is clinging to the world, जिससे बनती है will to be born, will to live. अगर देखा जाए, every one of us hates to die. The idea of death is so ugly, it's so scary, because we all have this will to live, will to be born, will to be alive. So according to Buddhist philosophy, this will to be born is the cause for birth and rebirth, and which is the cause for suffering like old age and death and disease. And all of this continues till a person attains nirvana. Right? So we are good with this, which is the doctrine of dependent origination. ये आप यहाँ भी लिख सकते हैं, ये भी लिख सकते हैं. This is an important point. The 12 links of the doctrine of dependent origination can be divided into 3 classes, namely the past, the future, and the present. अगर देखा जाए, this is the full cycle of a human being. So इसमें कुछ past है, कुछ present है, और future है. Ignorance and predisposition are due to the past life. ये past में हो रहा है, before a person is born. Consciousness, name and form, sense organs, contact, feeling, craving, clinging are connected to the present life. तो मतलब consciousness जो विज्ञाना है, विज्ञाना, नामा रूपा, फिर ये क्या था, sense organs, सदयातना, sense organs, सदयातना, contact, स्पर्शा, वेदना, तृष्णा, उपादना, ये सब जो है ये life में होते हैं. So this is part of the present. Finally, becoming, which is bhava, birth, which is jati, and old age, which is jara marana, they are of the future life. They become, इंसान की future में हो जाता है ये सब. Right? क्योंकि as one grows old, then they become more and more used to life, and then they, the will to be born is there, and then but connected to that is suffering like old age, disease, death, etc. Right? So almost it's done. Let me take you through this one again. कहाँ रखा मैंने वो? किधर गया यार? ये. I saved this as well. Let's give it a quick reading. ताकि tomorrow we can do Nyaya, then we are completely done with this. Yeah, let's give this a quick reading. This is the central conception, the theory of dependent origination. Give me a second, I'll just put the charger on. Oh, light ही नहीं. चलो, छोड़ो, light ही नहीं. Achha, this is the central conception of the system of Buddha. This is the Buddhist theory of causation. This explains the nature of existence. He said, leave aside the questions of the beginning and the end. I will instruct you in the law, the dharma of Buddhism. If that is, this comes to be. मतलब अगर वो है तो ये बनेगा. वो क्या है? वो cause है. ये क्या है? Effect है. On the springing up of that, this springs up. मतलब हर चीज is connected through causation. If that happens, this will happen. If a cause happens, effect will take place. If that is not, if, for example, there is no cause, then this does not come to be, then the effect is not produced. On the cessation of that, matlab on the cessation or the end of the cause, this effect ceases. मतलब कितनी बार ये हम समझ रहे हैं कि Buddha believes that everything has a cause, and if the cause exists, effect will exist. If the cause does not exist, there will be no effect. If the cause ceases to exist, रुक जाएगा, तो effect भी रुक जाएगा. ठीक है? So this is the common description of dependent origination. ये आप जरूर लिखेंगे अपने एग्जाम में अगर आएगा on dependent origination. You have to insist that Buddha believes in the law of causation. So this exposes most salient features of Buddha's conception of the principle of dependent origination. This is a temporal relation between the that and this. Temporal matlab time-based, based on time. Temporal is time-based relation between that, matlab that kya hai? Cause. This is effect. This is an experiential component. Experiential matlab हम ये experience करते हैं हर वक्त. For this refers to the effect, and that is experienced rather than inferred. मतलब हम effect experience करते हैं. This is something that we see all throughout our life. If I close the meeting, if I end the meeting, it will all be disconnected. है ना? So that means it is all connected via the principle of cause and effect. So formulating the principle of dependent origination in this manner, Buddha attempts to avoid the search for any mysterious entity or substance in the explanation of phenomena. He doesn't give any mysterious entity या mysterious कोई explanation कि cause and effect में. He says no. There is cause and there will be an effect following it. Avoiding mysterious entity or substance does not mean abandoning all inquiry and go to absolute skepticism. Rather, it represents the acceptance of a middle standpoint, and he calls it the right view. So Buddha ki jo theory hai is a middle view on existence. He says that there is cause for every effect. This is a very balanced view on existence. Okay, let's also read the word. अच्छा, so these two theories, इन दो theories के बीच में बुद्धा की theory है. एक theory है कि everything exists. मतलब everything is in existence. चाहे हमको दिखाई दे या ना दे, everything is existing. Another extreme is everything does not exist. If you would have read ancient Western philosophy, ancient Greek philosophy, जो उसमें वो ये था, skeptic था, Gorgias was his name. He was a skeptic and he said that everything does not exist. मतलब there is no existence, nothing exists. ये बस आंखों का धोखा है. So Buddha ki philosophy is in the middle. He says, yes, there are things that exist, then there are things that do not exist, but everything has a cause. A cause is followed by an effect. और जिसको बोला जाता है Pratitya Samutpada, and जिससे हम समझते हैं the origin of suffering. But you have to understand, this theory is the basis of all of his other theories. So if he applies this to the field of logic, if we apply this theory to the field of logic, it becomes the law of identity, which is a law of identity. Something is and something is and is not. मतलब अगर कुछ चीज है तो वो है, अगर वो नहीं वो है तो वो नहीं वो है. That's the law of identity. So basically you can say, you can write in your exam कि ये जो principle है, it's used in the field of logic. It also has applications in metaphysics. It becomes the theory of momentariness in Buddhist philosophy. You don't have to go into detail, वो हमारे syllabus में नहीं है. And it also is applied in ethics when it becomes the law of karma. Because we saw इसका क्या causation है. Suffering is caused by desire, and desire is caused by ignorance. and that becomes a full cycle of birth and rebirth, right? So almost we are done. Yes, we are actually done with this topic, and I'm going to let you go now, or inshallah kal hum padhenge nyaya now. All right, thank you very much everyone. Have a good evening. Assalamu alaikum.